The stars looked different from the bridge of the USS Horizon. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the wide window, watching the blue and green planet grow larger as they moved closer. This was humanity's first real trip to another world with life. On it, after 200 years of dreaming about meeting aliens, they were finally here. "Captain, we're getting close to the landing zone," said Lieutenant Amy Chun from her seat at the communication station. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls as she checked all the systems one more time. Jake nodded and turned to look at his crew. Dr. Lisa Hayes sat at the science station, her eyes bright with excitement as she read data from the planet below. Commander Ryan Torres stood near the weapons controls, but Jake hoped he would not need those today. This was supposed to be a peaceful mission. "What do we know about the surface?" Jake asked. Lisa looked up from her screen. "The air is good for us to breathe. Lots of plants and animals. The gravity is a bit stronger than Earth, but we can handle it. The temperature is warm, like a summer day back home." "Any signs of intelligent life?" Ryan asked. "Hard to tell from up here," Lisa said. "But the planet definitely has large animals. Really large. Some of them are bigger than elephants." Jake felt a small chill run down his back. Big animals usually meant predators, and predators meant danger. But this was why they were here. Humanity needed to learn about other worlds and the life that lived on them. "Take us down, Amy," Jake said. The ship shook a little as they entered the planet's atmosphere. Through the windows, Jake could see thick forests and wide grasslands. Rivers ran like silver ribbons through the green landscape. It looked beautiful and peaceful from above. But Jake had been a soldier before he became a ship captain. He knew that beautiful places could hide deadly secrets. The Horizon landed in a clearing near a forest. The engines went quiet, and for a moment, everything was still. Then the sounds of the alien world began to reach them through the ship's walls. Bird-like calls echoed from the trees. Insects buzzed and clicked. Somewhere in the distance, something large moved through the forest, breaking branches as it went. "Atmosphere is perfect," Lisa reported. "We can go outside safely." Jake put on his sidearm and checked that Ryan had his rifle ready. They were explorers, not soldiers, but they were not stupid either. The door of the ship opened with a soft hiss. Warm, humid air flowed in, carrying the smells of growing plants and rich earth. Jake stepped out first, his boots touching alien soil for the first time in human history. The world was louder than he had expected. The forest around them was full of life. Strange flowers grew everywhere, their colors brighter than anything on Earth. Flying creatures that looked like a mix between birds and butterflies moved through the air above them. "It's incredible," Lisa whispered as she stepped out behind him. She immediately began taking pictures and collecting samples of the plants near the ship. Ryan came out last, his eyes moving constantly as he watched the tree line for any sign of danger. "Stay close to the ship," he said quietly. "We don't know what's out there." For the first hour, everything went well. Lisa found dozens of new plant species. Amy recorded the sounds of the alien world. Jake took notes on everything they saw and heard. This was exactly what they had hoped for. Then the forest went quiet. All the bird sounds stopped. The insects went silent. Even the wind seemed to pause. Jake felt the hair on the back of his neck stand up. In his years as a soldier and then as an explorer, he had learned to trust that feeling. Silence in a living forest meant only one thing: predators. "Everyone, back to the ship," Jake said quietly. "Now." But it was too late. They came out of the forest like shadows made real. At first, Jake thought they were some kind of giant lizard. They walked on two powerful legs and had long tails that helped them balance. Their bodies were covered in dark scales that seemed to absorb the sunlight. Each one was at least 8 feet tall and built like a machine made for killing. Their heads were the most frightening part, long and narrow, filled with teeth that looked like they could bite through steel. But it was their eyes that made Jake's blood run cold. They were intelligent eyes. These were not just animals. These creatures could think. There were 6 of them, moving in a perfect circle around the humans. They made no sound as they walked, their clawed feet finding purchase on the ground without disturbing a single leaf. Jake realized they had been watching from the forest for a long time, studying the humans before deciding to reveal themselves. Ryan raised his rifle, but Jake put a hand on his arm. "Wait," he said. "They're not attacking." It was true. The creatures had surrounded them, but they were not moving to attack. Instead, they seemed to be studying the humans the same way the humans were studying them. The largest one, clearly the leader of the group, stood directly in front of Jake. For a long moment, human and alien stared at each other. Jake had looked into the eyes of many dangerous things in his life. Enemy soldiers who wanted to kill him, wild animals that saw him as prey, criminals who would hurt anyone to get what they wanted. But he had never seen anything quite like what he saw in the creature's eyes. Now, intelligence, curiosity, and something else. Something that made no sense, but felt completely real. Recognition. The creature tilted its head slightly, like a dog trying to understand a new sound. Its eyes never left Jake's face. Jake found himself unable to look away, even though every instinct told him to run or fight. Slowly, the creature took a step forward, then another. Ryan tensed beside Jake, ready to shoot, but Jake held up his hand again. "Wait," he whispered. The creature was now close enough that Jake could see his own reflection in its dark eyes. It leaned down, bringing its massive head closer to Jake's face. Jake could smell its breath, like metal and earth and something wild. Several heartbeats. They stayed like that. Predator and human, eye to eye, both trying to understand what they were seeing. Then something incredible happened. The creature's aggressive posture began to change. Its shoulders relaxed slightly. Its tail stopped twitching. The tension in its powerful muscles eased just a little. It was still dangerous. Jake had no doubt it could kill all 4 humans in seconds if it wanted to. But something had changed in those few moments of eye contact. The creature was no longer looking at Jake like he was prey, or even like he was a threat. It was looking at him like it recognized something familiar. The other creatures began to relax as well, taking their cue from their leader. They moved back a few steps, giving the humans more space, but they did not leave. Instead, they settled down on their haunches like giant, deadly cats, watching and waiting. What just happened? Lisa whispered. Jake shook his head slowly, never taking his eyes off the creature in front of him. "I'm not sure," he said, "but I think we just made first contact." The creature made a soft rumbling sound, almost like a cat purring. Then it turned and walked back toward the forest. The others followed, but they moved slowly, looking back at the humans several times. Just before they disappeared into the trees, the leader stopped and looked at Jake one more time. In that look, Jake saw something that would stay with him for the rest of his life: respect. News traveled fast through space. Within 3 days, every major government and space agency in human territory knew about Jake Morrison's encounter with the creatures on Kepler 442b. The video footage that Dr. Lisa Hayes had recorded became the most watched piece of media in human history. But the really strange part was what happened next. On Zarian, a desert planet 3 systems away, Colonel Ben Parker led a team of geological surveyors across endless sand dunes. They had been working for 2 weeks, taking samples and mapping mineral deposits. The work was hot, dusty, and boring. Until the 3rd week, when they found the bones. The skeleton was huge, easily 12 feet long. It looked like some kind of prehistoric wolf, but with longer legs and bigger teeth. The bones were old, but not ancient. Maybe a few hundred years, Lisa estimated when they sent her the pictures. Probably extinct, Ben told his team as they set up camp near the fossil site. Nothing that big could survive in this desert now. He was wrong. They came at sunset, when the temperature dropped and long shadows stretched across the dunes. At first, Ben thought they were dogs that had somehow survived in the wasteland. Then he saw their size and realized his mistake. The pack was made up of 8 creatures, each one as big as a horse, but built like a wolf. Their fur was the color of sand, and their eyes were pale yellow like tiny suns. They moved across the dunes without making a sound, their large paws spreading wide to keep them from sinking into the soft sand. The pack leader was a massive female, with scars across her face and a missing tip on one ear. She had clearly been fighting for a long time and winning. When she looked at Ben, he felt the same strange recognition that Jake Morrison had described in his report. These creatures knew how to hunt. They knew how to survive in one of the harshest environments in the galaxy. And somehow, they recognized that Ben knew those things too. On the ocean world of Aquatica, Dr. Kate Williams had spent a month studying the deep-sea life from her floating research station. The planet was almost entirely covered in water, with only a few small islands scattered across its surface. The oceans were full of life, but most of it lived in the deep places where humans could not easily reach. Kate was using robot submarines to explore the depths when she found them. The creatures lived in underwater caves at the bottom of deep trenches. They were unlike anything in Earth's oceans. Each one was the size of a whale, with dozens of tentacles that could stretch over 100 feet. Their bodies glowed with natural light, creating patterns that seemed to mean something. Kate spent days trying to figure out if the light patterns were some kind of language. The answer came when one of them rose from the depths to meet her. Kate was in her diving suit, working on a broken sensor 200 feet below the surface, when the water around her began to glow. She looked up to see a creature swimming toward her, its tentacles moving in slow, graceful waves. She should have been terrified. The creature was big enough to crush her tiny diving suit without effort. But when it came close and looked at her, through the water, Kate felt calm instead of afraid. The creature's eyes were huge and dark, but they held the same intelligence that Jake Morrison had described. It studied Kate for several minutes, its tentacles moving around her in complex patterns that made the water glow brighter. Then it did something that Kate would never forget. It reached out with one thin tentacle and gently touched her helmet. For a moment, human and alien floated together in the dark water, connected by that simple touch. The creature had recognized something in Kate's eyes, even through the glass of her helmet. It saw someone who understood the deep places and the creatures that lived there. Someone who respected the ocean and its power. On Pyros, a volcanic world where the air shimmered with heat, engineer Sam Rodriguez was building a geothermal power station. The work was dangerous because of the active volcanoes, but the energy they could harvest would power human colonies for decades. Sam's team worked during the cooler hours of early morning, when the temperature was only hot enough to kill an unprotected human in minutes instead of seconds. They wore special suits that kept them cool and breathing masks that filtered out the poisonous gases. The creatures of Pyros had adapted to live in conditions that would melt most life forms. They looked like a cross between a big cat and a lizard, with scales that could withstand direct contact with lava. Their eyes glowed red like coals, and steam rose from their bodies as they moved. Sam first saw them when he was checking equipment. Near an active lava flow, 3 of them stood on a ridge of volcanic rock, watching him work. They did not seem bothered by the heat that was making Sam sweat, even inside his protective suit. The largest one jumped down from the ridge and walked towards Sam across rock that was hot enough to melt copper. Sam's suit sensors went crazy as the creature approached, warning him about dangerous heat levels. But the creature stopped just close enough for Sam to see its eyes clearly. In those glowing red orbs, Sam saw the same recognition that his fellow humans had reported on other worlds. These creatures lived in hell and thrived. They had learned to make the most hostile environment in the galaxy their home. When they looked at Sam, they saw someone who also worked in dangerous places and understood what it meant to survive where others could not. Back on Earth, the reports from 4 different worlds created panic in the halls of government. Emergency meetings were called. Scientists debated what it all meant. Military leaders worried about the implications. But it was Ambassador Elena Vasquez who first understood the real problem. Elena had spent her career working with alien species. As part of the newly formed Galactic Alliance, most of the aliens that humans had met so far were peaceful creatures. They were plant-eaters or small scavengers. They had built their civilizations around avoiding conflict and living in harmony. These aliens had welcomed humans into their galactic community because humans seemed small and harmless compared to most species. Earth had no giant predators. Humans looked like they could be easily controlled or defeated if necessary. But now, human teams were making friends with the most dangerous creatures on every world they visited. The peaceful aliens were starting to ask uncomfortable questions. Why do the predators trust you? Asked Ambassador Veltar, the representative of the Zentari species. The Zentari looked like graceful deer, had walked on 2 legs, and had learned to use tools. They had built a beautiful civilization, but they had done it by staying away from anything dangerous. Elena tried to explain that humans were peaceful too, but the evidence was getting harder to ignore. Videos from 4 worlds showed the same pattern. Humans would meet apex predators, make eye contact, and somehow earn their respect. The crystalline hierarchy, beings made of living crystal who thought in pure logic, sent a message that worried Elena even more. They had analyzed all the videos and reached a conclusion that made no sense to most species. The predators recognize humans as fellow apex predators, the message said. This suggests that humans are more dangerous than they appear. Elena knew that was true, but she had hoped the other species would not figure it out so quickly. Humans had evolved differently than most intelligent species. Most aliens had developed intelligence to avoid predators or to find food more efficiently. They became smart to survive, not to hunt. But humans had become intelligent while they were still predators themselves. They had learned to hunt in groups, use tools as weapons, and plan complex strategies to catch their prey. Even after they developed farming and civilization, they kept those hunting instincts. Every human child played games that were really practice for hunting and fighting. Every human adult understood concepts like strategy, territory, and dominance even if they worked in peaceful jobs. The apex predators on alien worlds could see this truth in human eyes. They recognized the look of creatures who had climbed to the top of their food chain and stayed there. The problem was that the peaceful species of the Galactic Alliance were starting to recognize it too. Elena sat in her office on the diplomatic station, reading reports from the other alien governments. The fear was growing. Species that had welcomed humans as harmless newcomers were beginning to see them as a potential threat. And if the galaxy's most dangerous predators were choosing to ally with humans, that threat might be bigger than anyone had imagined. She opened a secure communication channel to Earth. It was time to warn her government that first contact was about to become much more complicated. The emergency session of the Galactic Alliance took place on Harmony's Edge, a massive space station that had been built specifically for diplomatic meetings. Representatives from 47 different species gathered in the Great Council Chamber, their various forms of communication filling the air with clicks, whistles, and electronic signals that the translation computers worked hard to convert into understandable speech. Ambassador Elena Vasquez sat in the human section, a small area that seemed even smaller when surrounded by the much larger delegations of species that had been part of the Alliance for centuries. She had only been warned about this meeting 6 hours before it started. That was not enough time to prepare for what was clearly going to be a trial. Ambassador Veltar the Centauri stood at the center of the chamber. His deer-like face was calm, but Elena could see the fear in his large, dark eyes. When Veltar spoke, his voice was translated into dozens of languages simultaneously. "We have called this emergency session because of troubling developments involving our newest members," he began. "The species known as humans have made contact with apex predators on multiple worlds. This is not normal diplomatic contact. These predators are responding to humans in ways we have never seen before." A large display screen activated, showing the video footage from Kepler 442b. Assembled delegates watched in silence as Jake Morrison stared down the massive reptilian creature that could have killed him in seconds. They saw the moment when the creature's aggressive posture changed to something that looked almost like respect. "This footage is from first contact," Veltar continued. "But it is not an isolated incident. More videos played. Ben Parker on Zarian, standing calmly while a pack of giant desert wolves circled him. Kate Williams underwater, allowing a massive tentacled creature to touch her helmet. Sam Rodriguez on Pyros, working near creatures that lived in lava flows. With each video, the mood in the chamber grew darker. The representative of the mollusk collective, an ancient species that resembled giant sea slugs, spoke next. Their communication was through chemical signals that the translators converted to electronic tones. "For 3,000 years, we have maintained peace in this galaxy by understanding the natural order," the mollusk said. "Predators hunt. Prey survive by avoiding predators. Intelligent species build civilizations that protect them from the wild dangers of their worlds. This system has worked because we all understand our place in it." The chemical signals grew stronger, indicating increased emotional intensity. Humans appear to be disrupting this order. They are not avoiding apex predators. They are making alliances with them. This threatens the stability that all our civilizations depend on. Elena stood up, knowing she had to defend her species even, though she was not sure she fully understood what was happening herself. "Honored representatives," she began, "humans are a peaceful species. We have no intention of disrupting the galactic order. These encounters with predator species are simple scientific exchanges. We are explorers, not conquerors." Ambassador Veltar-A's ears flicked in what Elena had learned was a sign of disagreement among the Centauri. "The evidence suggests otherwise," he said. "We have received reports that these predator species are changing their behavior after contact with humans. They are becoming more organized, more intelligent. Some are even beginning to use primitive tools." Elena felt a cold knot form in her stomach. She had not heard about that development. The crystalline hierarchy representative, a being of living crystal that communicated through light patterns, added their analysis. "Our computational models indicate a 73% probability that humans are accelerating the evolution of apex predator species," the crystal being said. "If this trend continues, we project the emergence of multiple intelligent predator civilizations within the next century." A wave of concerned sounds swept through the chamber. Several species that lived by hiding from predators began discussing evacuation plans in their native languages. The representative of the hive minds of Beetle Prime, a species of insect-like creatures that thought as a collective, buzzed angrily. "We have maintained our colonies by understanding predator behavior and avoiding their territories," they said. "If predators become intelligent and organized, our survival strategies will become useless. Our colonies could be wiped out." Elena tried to regain control of the situation. You are making assumptions based on limited data. Just because humans can communicate with these creatures does not mean we are turning them into threats. Then, explain this, said Ambassador Veltar. The main screen showed new footage that Elena had never seen before. It was from Kepler 442b, but it was not from the first contact. This video was only a few days old. Jake Morrison and his team were back on the planet's surface, but they were not alone. The reptilian creatures, the Vorthik, as the humans had started calling them, were working alongside the human team. They were carrying equipment, clearing paths through the forest, and even helping to set up scientific instruments. But that was not the most disturbing part. The most disturbing part was that the Vorthik were using tools. Simple tools, but tools nonetheless. They had shaped pieces of metal into cutting implements. They had learned to operate some of the simpler human devices. This footage is from 3 days ago, Veltar said. The predators are not just tolerating human presence. They are learning from humans. They are becoming more than they were. Elena watched the video with growing concern. She could see that the Vorthik were not just copying human actions. They were understanding the principles behind them. When Jake showed one of them how to use a scanner to detect mineral deposits, the creature grasped the concept immediately and began teaching other members of its pack. The hive minds buzzed even louder. This confirms our fears. Humans are not just making contact with predators. They are educating them. They are turning them into more dangerous versions of themselves. The representative of the gas cloud collective, beings of pure energy that rarely involve themselves in physical world. Politics spoke for the first time in decades. We have observed similar developments on 17 worlds where humans have made contact with apex predators, they said. In every case, the predators have shown increased intelligence and social organization within weeks of human contact. Elena felt the weight of 46 alien species staring at her. She realized that this was no longer just about explaining human actions. This was about the survival of civilizations that had been built on the assumption that predators would remain predictable. What do you want from us? She asked. Ambassador Veltar's expression was sad but determined. The Alliance Council has voted on a resolution. By a margin of 38-6, with 3 abstentions. We have decided that humanity must cease all contact with apex predator species immediately. Elena felt her heart sink. And if we refuse? Then humanity will be expelled from the Galactic Alliance and banned from entering the territory of any member species. The chamber fell silent. Elena realized that this was not just a diplomatic dispute. This was an ultimatum. Choose between exploring the galaxy and making friends with its most dangerous inhabitants. But even as she tried to think of a response, Elena knew that the choice might already be out of human hands. Reports were coming in from multiple worlds. The predator species were not just learning from humans. They were starting to communicate with each other. On Zarian, the desert wolf, packs had begun making new sounds that seemed to carry across the vast desert. Radio telescopes were picking up similar sound patterns from Kepler 442b, suggesting that the Vorthik were somehow talking to the desert wolves across interstellar space. On Aquatica, the deep-sea creatures had started creating light patterns that could be seen from space. Similar patterns were appearing in the lava flows of Pyros, created by the heat-resistant predators there. For the first time in galactic history, apex predators from different worlds were making contact with each other. And they were doing it with methods they had learned from their human allies. Elena looked around the chamber at the frightened faces of species that had built their entire civilizations on avoiding conflict with predators. She understood their fear, but she also understood something they did not. The predators were not becoming more dangerous because humans had made them evil. They were becoming more capable because humans had shown them what they could be. The Question was whether the galaxy was ready for apex predators that could think, plan, and work together. You have 30 standard days to comply with the resolution, Ambassador Veltar said. All human exploration teams must withdraw from worlds with apex predator populations. All contact with predator species must cease. If humanity refuses, the consequences will be severe. Elena nodded slowly. I will take your message to my government. But as she prepared to leave the station, Elena knew that 30 days might not be enough time to stop what had already been started. The predators had tasted intelligence and cooperation. They had learned that they were not alone in the universe. The question was no longer whether humans would stop making contact with apex predators. The question was whether the apex predators would let them. Dr. Lisa Hayes had not slept in 3 days. Her research lab on the USS Horizon was scattered with notes, video recordings, brain scans, and behavioral analysis reports from 4 different worlds. Coffee cups and food containers covered every available surface. She looked like someone who had been trying to solve the most important puzzle in human history, which was exactly what she was doing. Jake Morrison found her there at 0300 hours, staring at a wall display that showed brain activity patterns from both humans and the Vorthic creatures they had been working with. You need to rest, Jake said quietly. Lisa turned to look at him, her eyes red with exhaustion, but bright with excitement. I figured it out, Jake. I know why they recognize us. Jake stepped closer to the display. The brain scans showed strange similarities between human neural activity and the patterns they had recorded from the alien predators. But he was not a scientist, and the data looked like meaningless squiggles to him. Explain it to me like I'm 5 years old, he said, took a deep breath and pointed to the first set of scans. Look at this. This is a human brain when someone is hunting. Not literally hunting, but playing a strategy game or solving a complex problem. See these areas lighting up? Jake nodded. He could see regions of the brain glowing brighter than others. Now, look at this. Lisa switched to a different scan. This is a Vorthic brain when it's tracking prey through the forest. Look at the pattern. Jake stared at the 2 images. Even to his untrained eye, the similarities were obvious. The same regions were active. The same patterns of neural firing were visible. They think like us when they hunt, he said. Not just. When they hunt, Lisa said, switching to more scans. Look at this. Human brain during social interaction, specifically when establishing dominance in a group. And this is a Vorthic brain when the pack leader is making decisions for the group. Again, the patterns were remarkably similar. And this, Lisa continued, is the really interesting one. Human brain when we're being careful, watching for danger, staying alert for threats. And here's a Vorthic brain when it's aware that something bigger and more dangerous might be nearby. Jake felt a chill as he understood what Lisa was showing. Him, we think the same way they do. Not exactly the same, Lisa said, but close enough that they recognize the patterns. Jake, we're the only species in the galaxy that evolved as both predator and prey. She pulled up files on the other species they had encountered in the Galactic Alliance. Look at the Zentari. Their brains show fear responses and flight patterns, but no hunting behaviors. They evolved by running away from predators, not by fighting them. The Mollusk Collective shows complex problem-solving abilities, but no territorial or dominance behaviors. They survived by hiding and avoiding conflict. Lisa pulled up more files. The crystalline hierarchy processes information differently than biological species, but their decision-making patterns show no emotional or instinctual responses. They think in pure logic. The hive minds operate as a collective, so individual survival instincts are almost non-existent. Jake began to understand. But humans developed both sets of behaviors. Exactly, Lisa said. We learned to hunt in packs, establish territory, and compete for resources. But we also learn to watch for danger, hide when necessary, and survive. When we were the ones being hunted, most species developed one or the other. We developed both. She switched back to the comparison scans. When an apex predator looks into human eyes, it sees neural patterns that match its own hunting behaviors. But it also sees the survival patterns that prove we understand what it's like to be prey. We're the only species that truly understands both sides of the predator-prey relationship. Jake sat down heavily in a chair. That's why they respect you. It's more than respect, Lisa said. It's recognition. They see us as fellow apex predators who have earned our place at the top of the food chain. But they also see us as survivors who understand the rules of the hunt from both perspectives. She pulled up one more scan, this one from her own brain, taken during her first face-to-face encounter with a Vorthik. This is what happened when I looked into that creature's eyes for the first time, she said. My brain activated hunting patterns I didn't even know I had. But it also activated survival patterns that recognized I was in the presence of something that could kill me. The Vorthik could see both responses, and that's what convinced it that I was worth respecting instead of eating. Jake studied the scan. He could see the complex pattern of neural activity that represented Lisa's brain trying to process a completely new kind of encounter. There's more, Lisa said. I've been analyzing the behavioral changes in the predator species since they made contact with us. They're not just learning to use tools. They're learning to think about thinking. She pulled up video footage from all 4 worlds. Look at this carefully. The Vorthik are not just copying human actions. They're understanding the principles behind them and applying those principles to new situations. The desert wolves are teaching each other hunting techniques they learned from watching humans. The sea creatures are creating new light patterns based on human language concepts. The lava cats are working together in ways they never did before. Jake watched the videos with growing amazement. The predators were not just becoming smarter, they were becoming creative. How is this possible? He asked. Because we're showing them what they could be, Lisa said. These species all had the biological potential for higher intelligence. They had the brain structures and the social behaviors, but they never had a reason to develop beyond what they needed to survive in their environments. She pulled up evolutionary charts. Think about it. The Vorthik were already the dominant predators on their world. They didn't need to become smarter to survive. The desert wolves had already adapted perfectly to their environment. There was no evolutionary pressure pushing them to develop more complex thinking. But then we showed up, Jake said, and suddenly they had examples of what was possible. Lisa continued. They saw creatures who looked small and weak, but had somehow become the dominant species on their world through intelligence and cooperation. They realized that there were levels of thinking and organizing that they had never explored. Jake felt a mixture of pride and concern. We're accidentally triggering evolutionary leaps in apex predator species across the galaxy. Not accidentally, Lisa said. This is what humans do. We adapt, we learn, and we teach others to adapt and learn. It's built into our nature as a species that survived by being both predator and prey. She pulled up the communication logs from the past few days. And now they're teaching each other. The Vorthik have figured out how to send radio signals across space. They're sharing what they've learned with the desert wolves, the sea creatures, and the lava cats. For the first time in galactic history, apex predators from different worlds are working together. Jake realized the implications. The Galactic Alliance is terrified because we're not just making friends with individual predator species. We're creating a network of intelligent predators across multiple worlds. And there's something else, Lisa said quietly. Something I haven't told anyone yet. She pulled up a new set of data that Jake had never seen before. I've been monitoring communications from all 4 worlds. The predator species are not just talking to each other. They're planning something. Jake felt his blood run cold. Planning what? I'm not sure yet. The communication methods are too new and complex for our translation computers to fully understand. But the patterns suggest coordinated activity. They're organizing themselves across interstellar distances. Lisa showed him frequency analysis charts and communication timing data. Whatever they're planning, it's happening soon. All 4 species have increased their communication activity by over 400% in the past week. They're preparing for something big. Jake stared at the data, understanding finally why the Galactic Alliance was so frightened. It was not just about humans making friends with dangerous aliens. It was about those dangerous aliens becoming intelligent enough to work together and plan large-scale activities. Do you think they're planning to attack someone? Jake asked. Lisa shook her head. I don't think so. The communication patterns don't match aggressive behaviors. It's more like they're preparing for a meeting or a gathering of some kind. She pulled up one final piece of data. Jake, I think they want to make formal contact with the Galactic Alliance. I think they want to be recognized as intelligent species with rights and territories of their own. Jake understood the full implications. Now, the peaceful species of the galaxy had built their civilization by avoiding conflict with apex predators. They had never had to negotiate with them or treat them as equals. But now, thanks to human contact, the apex predators were ready to demand a place at the galactic table. The 30-day ultimatum from the Galactic Alliance was not just about stopping human contact with predator species. It was about preventing the emergence of a completely new power structure in the galaxy. And Jake realized that it might already be too. The massive communication array on Harmony's Edge had never been used for anything like this before. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood in the control room, watching as technicians from a dozen different species worked together to establish contact with 4 different worlds simultaneously. It had been 6 days since the Galactic Alliance gave humanity the ultimatum. In those 6 days, everything had changed. The apex predator species had not waited for human governments or alien councils to make decisions for them. They had taken action on their own. On Kepler 442b, the Vorthik had gathered in groups of hundreds, something they had never done before in their species' history. On Zarian, the desert wolf packs had abandoned their territories and were moving toward a central meeting point in the largest desert. On Aquatica, the deep-sea creatures had risen from the ocean depths and were floating near the surface in massive formations. On Pyros, the lava cats had emerged from their volcanic caves and were gathering on the cooler plateaus, and they were all trying to communicate with Harmony's Edge. The signals started arriving 3 days ago. Radio transmissions, light patterns, sonic frequencies, and electromagnetic pulses, all carrying the same basic message in the crude communication methods the predators had learned from their human contacts. They wanted to talk. This is unprecedented, said Ambassador Veltar, his deer-like features showing confusion and fear. Apex predators do not engage in diplomacy. They take what they want by force. Elena looked at the communication displays, showing the incoming signals from all 4 worlds. Maybe they're more like us than you thought. Dr. Lisa Hayes, who had been working around the clock to translate the alien communications, looked up from her workstation. I've managed to decode parts of their messages. They're not making demands or threats. They're asking for recognition. The representative of the crystalline hierarchy pulsed with light patterns that indicated deep concern. Recognition as what? As intelligent species with rights to their worlds and territories, Lisa said. They want to be part of the galactic community, not just dangerous animals to be avoided. Jake Morrison entered the control room, having just arrived from Kepler 442b with a delegation of Vorthik representatives. The sight of 3 massive reptilian predators walking calmly through the diplomatic station, had caused panic among many species, but Jake had insisted that direct contact was the only way to understand what the predators really wanted. The lead Vorthik, the same creature that had first made eye contact with Jake weeks ago, spoke in the rough approximation of human language it had learned. "We are not animals," it said slowly, each word carefully pronounced. "We think. We choose. We want respect." Ambassador Veltar stepped back instinctively, his flight reflexes activating even though he knew the Vorthik was not threatening him. "This is exactly what we feared," Veltar said. "The predators have become intelligent enough to make demands." The Vorthik leader tilted its massive head, a gesture he had learned from watching humans. "Not demands, request. We share galaxy, all species, together." Elena felt a spark of hope. "You want to join the Galactic Alliance?" The Vorthik made a sound that Dr. Hayes had identified as their version of agreement. "We learn from humans. They show us better way, not just hunt, build, create, explore." On the communication displays, similar messages were being received from the other three worlds. The desert wolves wanted territory recognition for their pack lands. The sea creatures wanted protection for their deep ocean breeding grounds. The lava cats wanted access to mineral resources on other volcanic worlds they were not asking for. The right to hunt other species or to expand their territories through conquest. They were asking for the same things that every intelligent species wanted: security, resources, and recognition of their rights. The representative of the mollusk collective released chemicals that the translators identified as confusion and uncertainty. "How do we know they will honor agreements?" the mollusk asked. "Their nature is to hunt and kill. How do we trust predators to keep promises?" Jake stepped forward. "The same way you learn to trust humans," he said, "by understanding that intelligence changes everything." He gestured to the Vorthik leader. "This creature could have killed me and my entire team on our first day. Instead, it chose to communicate. It chose to learn. It chose to build something better than just survival." Dr. Hayes pulled up her research data on the main display. "The behavioral changes we've observed in all four predator species show the same pattern: increased cooperation, decreased unnecessary violence, development of long-term planning abilities, and most importantly, the ability to consider the consequences of their actions." She highlighted specific data points. "These are not the behavioral patterns of mindless killers. These are the patterns of species that are learning to think beyond their immediate needs." The representative of the hive minds buzzed skeptically. "But they are still predators. Their hunting instincts have not disappeared." The Vorthik leader spoke again, its pronunciation improving as it practiced. "Yes, we hunt, but we choose what to hunt. We choose when to hunt. We no longer hunt thinking beings." Elena felt a chill of understanding. They're establishing ethical boundaries for themselves. "More than that," Jake said. "They're developing a code of conduct based on intelligence and consciousness. They've decided that hunting other thinking beings is wrong." The communication arrays activated again, this time with a coordinated message from all four worlds. Dr. Hayes worked quickly to translate the complex transmission. "They're proposing a treaty," she announced. "A formal agreement that would establish them as protector species for their respective worlds. In exchange for recognition and territorial rights, they would prevent actual dangerous predators from threatening other intelligent species." Ambassador Veltar's ears flicked with surprise. "They want to become guardians?" The Vorthik leader made the agreement sound again. "We strongest on our worlds. We protect others from real dangers. We keep peace." Elena began to understand the full implications. They're offering to police their own worlds, to become the enforcers of galactic law in places where other species can't protect themselves. The representative of the Gas Cloud Collective, who rarely participated in physical world politics, spoke for the second time in decades. This changes the fundamental structure of galactic civilization, they said. For 3,000 years, we have maintained peace by avoiding confrontation with predators. Now they are offering to join us as partners in maintaining that peace. The chamber fell silent as the representatives of 47 species tried to process this completely new possibility. It was Ambassador Veltar who spoke first. What guarantees do we have that they will honor such agreements? Jake gestured to the Vorthic leader. The same guarantee you have with any intelligent species. Their word, backed by their understanding of the consequences if they break it. The Vorthic leader stepped forward, its massive form somehow managing to seem non-threatening despite its obvious physical power. We give word, it said. We promise. We understand. Trust is earned. We will earn. Elena looked around the chamber at the faces of species that had spent millennia fearing creatures like the one now offering them partnership. This is what humans do, she said quietly. We don't just adapt to our environment. We help our environment adapt to us. We turn enemies into allies and predators into protectors. The vote took 3 hours. When it was finished, the Galactic Alliance had gained 4 new member species, and the galaxy had fundamentally changed. The Predator Accord, as it came to be known, established the first formal alliance between prey species and apex predators in galactic history. The predator species would maintain order on their worlds and protect smaller species from actual threats. In return, they would be recognized as equal partners in the galactic community. Jake stood on the observation deck of Harmony's Edge, looking out at the stars that no longer seemed quite as dark or dangerous as they had before. Beside him, the Vorthic leader practiced new human words with the patience of a creature that had learned the value of communication over conquest. How long before we explore other worlds? The Vorthic asked. Jake smiled. As soon as we build ships big enough for you to fit in. The Predator made the rumbling sound that Dr. Hayes had identified as laughter. We will need big ships. Elena joined them at the observation window, still carrying the signed treaty documents that would reshape galactic civilization. You realize what you've done? She asked Jake. We helped the galaxy grow up a little, Jake said. We showed everyone that predators and prey don't have to be enemies forever. The Vorthic leader looked out at the stars with the same wonder that humans had felt when they first left Earth. Galaxy is big, it said. Room for all. Elena nodded. Room for all. In the months that followed, human ships would carry the first apex predator diplomats to worlds across the galaxy. The peaceful species would slowly learn to work alongside their former greatest fears. And the predators would discover that there were challenges in the universe that required more than just hunting, skills to overcome. The galaxy had found a